Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. In today's tutorial, we're making the most adorable cardigan. It's not too often we work with scallops, but they were just the trick to soften a modern bomber for a make suitable for all generations. Speaking of, by now y'all already know the drill, but just in case you're new. We have modern crochet tutorials and patterns with even more dropping twice weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now, it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 730 grams of yarn. That's 1,340 yards if you're stateside, and the individual measurements will be on the screen. As for tools, a 6mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us if you prefer spicy or mild food. If the dish calls for spice, I'm totally into it. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 5 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, and treble crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small. You can adjust it for your size and explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this cardigan started, we're all going to grab our primary color yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 6mm hook and start off by making a chain that is in multiples of 6 that reaches from mid-chest all the way out to the tip of our shoulder. Now I need roughly 8.5 inches or 21 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 30. And I actually already have this portion completed, so I'm just going to be doing a small sample size with you. So once we have our chain, we're all going to do an additional 2 chains. That's going to be the same for every size. So an additional 1 and an additional second chain. Those 2 chains still count as our base chain. From here, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. From here, we're going to do a half double crochet row. Yarn over into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook. Bring your hook down into that chain, pull through, yarn over, and pull through 3. That is our first half double crochet. Let's do one more. Yarn over into that following chain, insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. Continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain. Our row 1 is complete. Now let's get started on our row 2. So we're all going to chain 1 and flip. Starting with that first stitch from our previous row, insert with a single crochet. Again, next stitch, single crochet. Continue with 1 single crochet into every stitch. Our first 2 rows are now completed. Now we're going to get started on our row 3, or our first alpine stitch row. So we're going to chain 2 and flip. Our first alpine stitch row is going to start with a half double crochet for everyone. So yarn over into that first stitch with 1 half double crochet, then 1 front post double crochet. So yarn over into the second half double crochet from our row 1. We want to make sure that we're not counting that chain 2, and we're not going to work into that first half double because the half double that we just did is directly on top of that stitch. So underneath the second half double, we're going to bring our hook down, underneath, and through the other side. Then yarn over and pull through. When we have these 3 loops on our hook, we're all going to pull up tall, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Then from here, it is going to be a half double and front post double to reach the end of the row. So what we're going to do again, yarn over. To do our half double crochet, we will be skipping 1 stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as that stitch. So into that next stitch, insert with a half double. Then we're going to do our front post double. So yarn over, skipping that next stitch from our row 1 because that half double crochet, is directly on top of that stitch. Into the body of that next stitch, we're going to bring our hook down, underneath, through the other side, and pull through. When we have these 3 loops on our hook, pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. Let's do the next set of stitches once more, a little bit quicker. So yarn over, preparing for a half double. Skipping 1 stitch from our previous row because our front post double counts as that stitch. Into the next, insert with a half. Then yarn over, preparing for a front post double. Skipping that following stitch from our row 1 because that half double counts as that stitch. Underneath the next with a front post double. So pull through, pull up tall to get the same height as our half double. Pull through 2, pull through 2. We're going to continue with our half double front post double to reach the end of the row. But the last stitch of this row will be a front post double, so I'll meet you back to do that last stitch together. So we've made our way down with our row 3. We have our last stitch to do, which is our front post double. Just to secure that last stitch down, we are going to combine it with a half double. So starting with the yarn over. Into the last stitch from our row 1, we're going to bring our hook down underneath the body and through the other side. Yarn over and pull through. When we have these 3 loops on our hook, we're going to pull up tall. Yarn over, pull through 2. Now when we have these 2 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over again, then insert our hook into the last stitch from our previous row. So bring our hook back into that last stitch and pull through. When we have these 4 loops on our hook, we're all going to yarn over and pull through all 4. And now our row 3 is complete. Every even number row for this section is going to be a single crochet row. So chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 single crochet into every stitch. We are back. Our row 4 is complete. Now we're going to get started on our row 5, so chain 2 and flip. So getting started on our row 5, we're all going to start with a front post double. Now we're still going to alternate between a front post double and half double, but we want to make sure that we're alternating the stitches from our previous Alpine stitch row to get the texture that we want. So taking a look at our previous Alpine stitch row, which should have been row 3 for everyone, that first stitch was a half double. Now we're going to be putting a front post double into that half double. And every Alpine stitch row will be worked into our previous Alpine stitch row or our previous odd number row. So all of our post stitches for row 5 will be worked into our row 3. So getting that started, we're all going to yarn over into that first stitch from our previous Alpine stitch row, which should be a half double. Bring our hook down underneath that first stitch, pull through, pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. Then we're going to do a half double on top of our front post double. We're all going to yarn over, skipping 1 stitch from our previous row because this front post double counts as that stitch, into the top of that next with a half double. And that's it. Let's do this set once more. Yarn over into our previous Alpine stitch row's half double crochet, insert with a front post double, then yarn over, preparing for a half, skip 1 stitch from our previous row because this front post double counts as that stitch, then a half double crochet into the next. From here, we're going to continue with our front post double and half double to reach the end of the row. And for this row, our last stitch is going to be a half double crochet, so we're not going to do anything fancy with it. Then I'll meet you back. So our row 5 is complete. Now let's get started on our row 6, which is a single crochet row. So chain 1, flip our work, put 1 single into every stitch, then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We have just completed our row 6. From here, it is going to be a repeat of rows 3 through 6 until we get the height of this detail portion that we need. So placing this first row where we'd like for the length of our cardigan to be. So I'm going to place mine at my hips. Then I'm going to continue on with rows 3 through 6. All of those links will be linked in the description, by the way, until we reach our underbust. So roughly where an underwire would sit so that we have enough space to do the basket weave detail and the neckline. So we are back. We now have the Alpine stitch detail of our front panel completed. I have a total of 47 rows. This height is just about 13 inches or 33 centimeters. Now we're going to do a few diagonal basket weave rows before we get started on the neckline. So what we're going to do from where we're at is chain 3 and flip. And now we're all going to get started on our diagonal basket weave stitch. It's going to start with 1 double crochet into the first stitch. So yarn over into that first stitch, pull through 2, pull through 2. Now we're all going to do a set of 3 front post treble crochets. So we're going to start by counting out the next 3 stitches. There's 1, 2, 3. We're going to be skipping those 3 stitches. Then into the following 3 front post treble crochets. So yarn over twice. We're going to skip 1, skip 2, skip 3. Into that 4th available stitch, insert, pull through, then yarn over, pull through 2 till we have 1 loop left on our hook. There's our first. We're going to be doing 2 more into the following 2 stitches. So yarn over twice, into that next available stitch, insert, pull through, and pull through 2 till we have 1 loop left. Then into the next, insert, pull through till we have 1 loop left. Then into the 3 stitches that we just skipped over, 1 treble crochet into each of those. So yarn over twice. Into that first skip stitch, bring our hook down, into that first, pull through, then pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook, so just like the other stitches. Then 1 more into each of the following skip stitches. So yarn over twice, into that first skip stitch with 1 treble crochet, into that last skip stitch with 1 more treble crochet. So yarn over, pull through 2 till we have 1 loop left on our hook. And that is our first diagonal basket weave set of stitches. We're going to continue on with our 6 previous stitches to reach the end of the row. So let's do this again a little bit faster. So yarn over twice. We are going to skip 1, 2, 3 into that 4th available stitch with 1 treble crochet, into that next with another treble crochet, then into the next with another treble crochet, then into the 3 skip stitches, 1 treble crochet into each of those. Now that we have these set of diagonal basket weaves completed, we're going to continue on with our 6 previous stitches, making our way all the way down. At the end of the row, we should all have just 1 stitch left, then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We've made our way all the way down with our first diagonal basket weave row. We should all have just 1 stitch left. Into that last stitch, it is going to be 1 double crochet. So just into that last stitch, we're going to yarn over and insert with just 1 double crochet. And now our first diagonal basket weave row is complete. Now to get started on the following row, we're all going to chain 3 and flip. So getting started on our second basket weave row, we're all going to start with 4 double crochets. Yarn over into that first stitch, which should be the top of that double crochet from our previous row. Insert with 1, into the next with a second, next with our third, and next with our 4th double crochet. Now that our 4 double crochets are completed, we're going to skip the next 1, 2, 3 stitches, and into the top of the next 3, 1 treble crochet into each of those. So skip 1, 2, 3, and then insert into the next. So yarn over twice, into the top of that next stitch with 1 treble crochet, into that next available stitch with another treble crochet, and into the top of that next stitch with another treble crochet. Now that we have these 3 treble crochets completed, we're going to be working back into those stitches that we just skipped over, but we're going to be working underneath into this little window that we made. So starting with a yarn over of 2, preparing for a treble crochet, we're going to bring our hook down and bring our hook underneath our work and in through that window. And then finding that first skip stitch, this is mine right here. I'm going to insert my hook into that first stitch and do our normal treble crochet. So let's do it again. Yarn over twice. Bring our hook underneath our piece and in through that window. So bring our hook underneath and finding our next available stitch, which is this one for me right here. I'm going to make sure I still have my yarn over 2. Bring our hook underneath, then into the top of that next available skip stitch. Then treble crochet per usual. And we're going to do that once more because we have 1 more available skip stitch. So yarn over twice. Hang on to your working yarn. We're going to bring our hook down, in through that window, and then in through that last available stitch, and then treble crochet per usual. And our first basket weave set is completed. Let's do this again a little bit quicker. So just like before, we are going to skip 1, 2, 3, then into the following 3 stitches, 1 treble crochet into each. So skip 1, 2, 3 like I said, starting with that next. Insert with 1 treble crochet, into that next with another treble, then into that next with another treble crochet. Now we're going to work back into those skip stitches, so yarn over twice, bring your hook underneath our 3 treble crochets, finding that first skip stitch. This is mine right here. I'm going to insert my hook into the top of that stitch with 1 treble crochet, into that next with another treble, so yarn over, bring your hook underneath that work, finding that next available stitch. This is mine right here. I'm going to insert and treble per usual. Then once more, yarn over twice, underneath our work, finding that last available stitch with our last treble crochet. We're going to continue to repeating these 6 stitches till we all have 4 stitches left. So we've made our way down with our diagonal basket weave stitch. We left the last 4 stitches. Now we're going to close off our second basket weave row with 4 double crochets, pretty much the same way that we started off this row. So what we're going to do, yarn over into that 4th to last with 1 double, 3rd to last, 1 double, 2nd to last, 1 double, and last with 1 double crochet. And now our second basket weave row is complete. From here, it's going to be a repeat of these 2 rows until we reach mid-chest and are ready to do our neckline. Now, if you need any timestamps, they will be linked in the description, and I'll meet you back after a repeat of row 2. Now, I'm actually complete with this portion after these 2 rows that we just did together. So now my total height is 14 inches or 36 centimeters. Now we're going to get started on our neckline. So what we're going to do is chain 3, flip our work, and start our repeat of our first basket weave row, and I'll meet everyone back when we have a total of 7 stitches left. So we've made our way all the way down with our first decrease row, leaving the last 7 stitches. Now we're going to do our decrease. So that's going to start with 3 double crochets just to complete our set of diagonal basket weave stitches. So yarn over just into that next available stitch, insert with our first double crochet, our second double, and our 3rd. Now that should leave us with 4 stitches left. Now we're going to do a decrease of 4 double crochets. So yarn over into that 4th to last, pull through, 3rd to last, pull through, 2nd, pull through, and last, pull through. We should all have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through the first 5 loops, leaving us with 2. Then yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops. And make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into the edge of this decrease row just so we know where the neckline starts and ends. Now our first decrease row is completed. So let's get started on our second row. We're going to chain 3 and flip. Now we're going to be decreasing into every other row. So starting with 1 double crochet into that first stitch. Then we're going to skip 1, 2, 3 stitches. Then into the next 3 stitches, 1 treble crochet into each of those. Then we're going to bring our hook down underneath the body of those 3 stitches that we just completed into that first skip stitch with our first treble crochet. So this is per usual. Then 2 more treble crochets into each of the 2 stitches that we just skipped over, working underneath our work, going into that window. And now that we have these 6 stitches completed, we're going to continue to repeat these 6 stitches until we all have 4 stitches left, then close off the row with 4 double crochets. Then I'll meet you back. Now our second decrease row is completed, even though we didn't actually decrease into the second row. Now we're going to do our third decrease row, which it will end with a decrease. So what we're going to do is chain 3 and flip. So getting started on our third decrease row, what we're going to do is start with 1 double crochet, and this is going to be roughly the same as our repeat of row 1. So we're going to skip the next 3 stitches and then put 1 treble crochet into each of those. Then 1 treble crochet into 3 skip stitches, and we're going to make our way all the way down until we have 4 stitches left. So we've made our way down with our third decreased row, and for this one, we left 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches. Now we're going to do another decrease of 4 double crochet. So yarn over into that 4th to last, pull through, 3rd, pull through, 2nd, pull through, and last, pull through for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 loops on our hook again. Then yarn over, pull through the first 5 loops on our hook, leaving us with 2, then yarn over, pull through 2. From here, we're going to chain 3 and flip to get started on the following row. So getting started on our following decrease row, remember we're only decreasing into every other row, we're all going to chain 3, flip our work. This one is going to start with 4 double crochets. So now that we have our 4 double crochets, we're now going to get started on our following row, and this one is going to be a repeat of our second diagonal basket weave row. So we are going to skip 1, 2, 3 stitches, 1 treble crochet into the following 3. Then working back into the skip stitches, we're going to work underneath and then 1 treble crochet into each of the skip stitches. We're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way down. So we are back. We have all just completed 4 of our decrease rows. From here, it is going to be a repeat of our 4 previous rows. These links will be linked in the description if you need them, until we now reach the top of our shoulder. So making sure that we're placing our first decrease row, so where our stitch marker is, at mid-chest. And also making sure that the first Alpine stitch row is staying where you'd like for the bottom of this cardigan to be. So for me, that's at my hips. We're going to continue these 4 rows to reach the top of our shoulder. And make sure you end on an even number of basket weave rows. So we are back. I've just completed my decrease portion. Now counting all of my basket weave rows, so I am counting my rows where I didn't do decreases as well, I have a total of 12 rows. Now my total height for the entirety of my panel is 21 inches or 53 centimeters. Now from here, we're going to make a second panel. Now, since the Alpine stitch detail isn't reversible, we're going to start by making the same exact Alpine stitch detail that we did for this first side, same amount of rows, same chain, same everything. Once we have that last row, we are going to do a chain up of 1 and cut. Then, so that we can repeat exactly the same thing that we did for this diagonal basket weave detail, we're going to insert our same hook into the opposite corner from our tail end. Then we're going to repeat the same diagonal basket weave rows for the non-decrease rows, then for the same decrease rows as well. Once we have the second portion completed and it looks exactly the same as the first one, do a chain up of 1 and cut, then I will meet you guys back so we can get started on the back panel. So we are back and we have just completed both of our front panels. We did do a chain up of 1 and cut right after that last row. Now we're going to get started on the back panel. The back panel is going to be done exactly the same way as the front panel, but it is going to be wider and we aren't going to have the neckline decreases. So I'm just going to talk you guys through it. We're all going to start by making a chain for the same amount of chains that we made when we got started on one of our front panels, but minus that additional chain 2. So for example, for those of you that have my numbers, for one of my front panels, I made a chain 30. Now both my front panels are the same. I made a chain 30. And then we all did the additional chain 2. I'm going to take my chain 30 and then multiply that times 2 because I have 2 front panels, so 60. We want to make sure that we're not adding the additional chain 2 on both sides because the amount of chains that we need to have for the back panel needs to be in multiples of 6. So I'm going to make a chain 60. Once when I have my chain, then an additional chain 2 from there. Then we're going to do our same exact Alpine stitch detail, making our way all the way up for the same amount of Alpine stitch rows that we have for the front panel. Then once we have that, we're going to do the same diagonal basket weave rows for the same amount of rows that we have for the front panel, no increases, no decreases. Then once we have that completed, we can then seam the front and the back panel together. But just as a really quick tip, working our Alpine stitch detail directly into our basket weave row, our basket weave could kind of shrink our stitches a little bit. As long as you have the same amount of stitches for your basket weave as chains that we made when we got started on the back panel, everything should be fine. But if you would like for it to relax just a little bit more, then you can always steam the top, which is just what I did, just to get our stitches to relax. Then the entire piece should roughly be the same width. But when we have the entirety of our back panel completed, do not cut because we'll be able to do a single crochet row along the edges. So once when the total height of our back panel is completed, we're going to single crochet along the edges. So from where we're at, we're going to chain 1 and flip and single crochet. Now working into the side of our basket weave rows, we're going to be putting 2 single crochet into every side row. This is my first. We're going to find that top loop and insert with 1, same top loop and insert with a second. Let's do that again. Into our following side row, insert with 1, into that same top loop with a second. We're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way down until we reach our first alpine stitch row. We have just made our way down the edge of our basket weave row, and we have reached our first alpine stitch row. Working down the alpine stitch detail, we're just going to be putting 1 single crochet into every side row. So this is our first side row, which should be a side alpine stitch row. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with just 1 single crochet. Into our following side row, which is a side single crochet row, insert with a single. Let's do this again. My following side row, insert with a single, following side row, insert with a single. Continue with 1 single crochet into every side row. Once we reach the end of the row, do a chain up of 1 and cut. We've just completed single crocheting along the edge of our back panel. Now we're going to repeat on the other side, but because we want to show the front of our single crochet row, we're now going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch of our back panel. So inserting our hook into the alpine stitch end, we're going to put 1 single crochet into every side row. Then once we reach our basket weave detail, again 2 single crochets into every side row. Once we don't have any more side rows left to work into, do a chain up of 1 and cut. Then I'll meet you back to single crochet along the edges of the front panel as well. We've just single crocheted along the edges of our back panel. We're going to single crochet along the edge of the front panels, then we're going to seam everything together. So just taking a look at both of our front panels, making sure that the neckline detail is within the middle. What we're going to do is for the front panel that's on the right side, we're going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch, then do our same single crochet row all the way up along the edge. Then for the one on the left side, insert your hook into the top corner stitch and then single crochet down the edge. We're going to do that for both sides, then I'll meet you back so we can seam up the shoulders together. So once we have both our front and back panel completed, we're now going to seam the shoulders. So first things first, we're going to place our front panel on top of our back panel, making sure the neckline is towards the middle and not towards the outer edge. And we also want to make sure the work is flipped wrong side out, meaning the alpine stitch detail that we have is face in on each other. Then we're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Then we're going to do our single crochet seam. Then we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. And we're going to single crochet in through both the front and the back panel at the same time. So finding that first stitch into the front panel, insert, first available stitch into the back panel, insert, and we're going to single crochet everything together. I did place my tail ends over my stitches so that I can weave them in as I go. Again, next stitch into the front panel, next stitch into the back panel, and single crochet, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this till we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up 1 and cut, then repeat on the other side. So we are back. We have just completed seaming up the shoulders. Now we're going to seam up the sides. Now first things first, we're all going to want to try our piece on. Then we're going to insert our stitch marker into any stitch from the top for the width that we'd like for the sleeve to be. Now I'd like for mine to be just about 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters. So I'm going to insert my stitch marker into the 24th stitch from the top. From here, we're going to make sure that our work is still flipped wrong side out, meaning the seam for the shoulder that we just did is still on the outside. Then insert your hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. From here, do the same single crochet seam that we did for the shoulder, making our way all the way up until we reach our stitch marker. Once we do a chain up 1 and cut, repeat on the other side, then I'll meet you back to get started on the sleeve. So getting started on our sleeve, we're all going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. We are then going to insert our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our side seam within the armhole, and we're going to start with a half double crochet row. Now we do want to make sure that for the half double crochet row, we are working clockwise because we want to show the front of our half double crochet row. So all we're going to do is chain 2. That chain 2 will not count as a stitch, we just want the height, and make our way around with 1 half double crochet into every stitch. Then I'll meet you back. Now we've made our way around with our first half double crochet row. Now we're going to close off the row by slip stitching into that second chain that we made. Insert with a slip stitch. Then we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and working in the opposite direction from our previous row, 1 single crochet into every stitch, then I'll meet you back. We made our way around with our second row. Now we're going to slip stitch into that first chain that we made to close off the row. So into that chain, insert, yarn over, pull through everything on our hook. Then to get started on our row 3 or our first alpine stitch row, we're all going to chain 2 and flip. Now this is going to be the same as the body. We're going to start our row 3 with a half double crochet. Then working into our row 1 with a front post double. So making sure that we're not working into that first half double, into that second, insert, pull through, pull up tall, pull through 2, and continue on with our Alpine stitch detail all the way around. So we've made our way around with our row 3. Now just as a really quick tip, since these are worked into the rounds, if our last stitch is a front post double crochet, it does not need to end with a front post double crochet combined with a half double. It can just end with a regular front post double. Now we're going to close off the row the same way that we did our row 1. So slip stitch into that second chain to connect, then chain 1, flip our work, 1 single crochet into every stitch, then I'll meet you back again. Our row 4 is now complete. Now we're going to get started on row 5, which again will be done the same way as the body portion. So we're going to chain 2 and flip. I'm going to start with a front post double worked into our previous Alpine stitch row. So just like for the body, we're going to be working into our previous Alpine stitch rows, half double crochet for our front post double, because remember the stitches need to be staggered. Then yarn over, preparing for a half double. We're going to skip 1 stitch from our previous row because that front post double counts as that stitch. Then into the next with 1 half double crochet. From here, continue our front post double and half double to reach the end of the row. We are back. We've just completed our row 5. We did close off the row by slip stitching into that chain 2 that we made when we started off the row. Now to do our row 6, it's going to be a single crochet row. So chain 1, flip our work, 1 single into every stitch, then I'll meet you back. We have just completed our first 6 sleeve rows. From here, we're going to continue to repeat rows 3 through 6 until we get the total length of the sleeve that we want. Then I'll meet you back right after an Alpine stitch row when we get started on the cuff. So we are back. We have just completed the length of our sleeve. Now I have a total of 61 rows. This length is just about 17 inches or 43 centimeters. Now from here, we're going to get started on our cuff. So right after our last row, which should have been an Alpine stitch row, we're all going to chain 1. And working in the same direction, we're going to do a decreasing single crochet row. All we're going to do is 1 single crochet into that first stitch, then a decrease of 2. So insert, pull through, next stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. Again, into that next stitch, insert with just 1 single crochet, then into the next, a decrease. So insert, pull through, next stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. From here, continue with 1 single crochet, then a decrease, making our way all the way around. So now that our single crochet row is complete and we have slip stitched into that chain space that we made, we're now all going to make a chain the length that we'd like for the cuff to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 3 inches or 8 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 15. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain, and into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert, yarn over, and gently pull through both loops on our hook with a slip stitch. Again, into that next chain, yarn over, and pull through both. From here, continue with 1 slip stitch into every chain, but remembering not to tug too tightly, otherwise the following row can be a little too tight to work into. Now that we've put 1 slip stitch into every chain, we're going to connect it into the base. So finding that first available stitch into the base, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch into the base doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, flip our work, and now we're going to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So finding the last stitch from our previous row, making sure that we're not working into any of those slip stitches into the base, we're going to insert into that back loop, or the loop that's furthest away from us, yarn over, pull through everything. Again, into that next stitch's back loop, insert and gently pull through everything and continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Then at the end of the row, we're all going to chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch again. Then I'll meet you back at the end of our row 3. We have just completed our first 3 rows. Now we're going to connect it into the base again. So just finding that next available stitch, insert with a slip stitch, does not connect, then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch in that following stitch into the base. Then from here, continue our 2 previous rows, making our way all the way around with no additional increases or decreases. Once we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back so we can seam it all together. So we are back. We've made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch cuff. Now we don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam it together by doing an outside loop slip stitch seam. Now this seam is going to look like another back loop slip stitch row, so making sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up, we're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel, making sure we're working into both the outside stitches. What we're going to do from here is pull through. Then let's do the next one together. Finding that next available stitch into the front panel, we're going to insert only into that front loop. Finding that next available stitch into the back panel, inserting only into that back loop or the loop that's furthest away from us. Then yarn over and pull through everything. Again, next stitch into the front panel, insert into that front loop. Next stitch into the back panel, insert into that back loop. Yarn over, pull through everything, and continue this till we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up one and cut, then repeat everything we did here on the other side. So we are back. We have just completed both of our sleeves and cuffs. Now from here, we're going to get started on our front band. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. But right before we get started on the actual single crochet row, what we're all going to want to do is insert our stitch marker into the 2 middle stitches that we have into the top of the back panel. Now, for those of you that have my numbers, just counting from the available stitches that we have, since our shoulders are already seamed to the back panel, I have a total of 28 stitches. Now, we should all have 2 middle stitches, so mine are the 14th and 15th stitch. We're going to leave those into there, and then once we do our following single crochet row, we're going to insert those into the single crochet row just so we know where the 2 middle stitches are. Then we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Inserting our hook into the bottom left corner of our front panel, and we're going to do the same single crochets that we did along the edges of our front and back panel. So as a refresher, 1 single crochet into every side row for the Alpine stitch detail. Then 2 single crochets into every side diagonal basket weave row until we're worked into the side row right before our stitch marker. Then I'll meet you back. So we have just made our way up with our single crochet row until we're worked into the side basket weave row that's right before our stitch marker side row. Now working into the decrease edge of our basket weave detail, we're just going to be putting 2 single crochet into every side row, making our way all the way up. Into the first side row right here, which should be our stitch marker side row, we're going to insert with 2 single crochets. So into that top loop, there is 1. Into that same top loop, there is 2. Then what we're going to do is insert our stitch marker into that first stitch that we did. From here, we're going to continue with 2 single crochets into every side row. We're going to work our way all the way around with our single crochets, making sure we're inserting our stitch markers into the same stitches. Then at the end of the row, we're going to chain 1 and cut. We have just completed our single crochet row with our primary color. Now from here, we're going to do another single crochet row, just putting 1 single crochet into every stitch, just as a prep for our front band with our secondary color yarn. So right after we did a chain up a 1 and cut, we're going to reinsert our hook into the same corner stitch that our first single crochet row started in, because we want to show the front of the single crochet row, and just put 1 single crochet into every stitch, making sure we're inserting our stitch markers into the same stitches. Then at the end of the row, cut, and I'll meet you back. So we are back. Our single crochet row with our secondary color is complete. Now we're going to get started on the collar. So we're going to make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up. Then what we're going to do is insert our hook into our stitch marker stitch within the front panel, then insert our secondary color yarn onto our hook. We're then going to pull through and start with a chain 1, and that is going to be the same for everyone, no matter what size we're making. Now once we have our chain 1, we're going to block off that chain 1 and then do another chain. That chain counts as our turning chain. Then into that chain 1, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. So insert your hook, yarn over, and gently pull through everything on our hook. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So into that next available stitch into the base, we're going to insert with a slip stitch, same way that we did for the cuff. That slip stitch into the base doesn't actually count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next available stitch into the base. That slip stitch into the base still does not count as a stitch, and flip our work. Now we're going to do 1 back loop slip stitch into the 1 stitch that we have from our row 1. So making sure that we're not working into any of those slip stitches into the base, we're going to find that stitch from our previous row, insert into that back loop, yarn over, gently pull through everything. Then we are going to work our way up to our row 2. We are going to start the row off with an increase, so that's going to be a chain 2. That first chain will count as a stitch for our following row, that second chain will count as our turning chain, and flip our work. Now we're going to slip stitch into that second chain from our hook. So insert into that back loop, yarn over, gently pull through everything. Then we should have one more stitch left into our row. So into that stitch's back loop as well. Yarn over, pull through everything. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So into that next stitch into the base, insert with a slip stitch to connect. Doesn't count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next stitch into the base. Still doesn't count as a stitch. Flip our work. And now we're going to put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So into that first stitch's back loop, insert, pull through everything. Next stitch's back loop, pull through everything. And now we're at the end of our even number row. We're all going to chain 2 because we are going to increase into that following row. Flip our work. Then into that second chain from our hook, insert with a back loop slip stitch. Then continue with one back loop slip stitch into the rest of our stitches. Then from here, simply connect it into the base. Then from here, all we're going to do is continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until we get the collar height that we would like. Then I will meet you guys back when we're worked into the base so that we can get started on the rest of our collar. We are back and I have just worked the first few rows for my collar, and this is the height that I'd like for mine to be, which is roughly 1.5 inches or 3 centimeters, and I did a total of 13 rows. From here, we're going to continue with our same back loop slip stitch rows that we did for the cuff. So basically same thing as this, but without the increases as well. So once we have the total height that we'd like for the collar to be, just work it into the base the same way that we've been doing. One back loop slip into every stitch, chain 1, flip our work, one back loop slip into every stitch again. Once we have that and we've made our way all the way over and worked into our stitch marker stitch, we're going to do a chain up 1 and cut. Then repeat everything we did here on the other side, worked into our following stitch marker stitch as well. But once when the second one is completed, do not do a chain up 1 and cut, because then we can meet back and seam everything up together. We are back and we have just completed the second half of our collar. Now from here, what we're going to do is seam it together, since we should have worked into our stitch marker stitch. As you guys can see, I have already seamed mine together. Now it is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam, so the same exact seam that we did for the cuff. So just making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, do our same exact outside loop slip stitch seam. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, do a chain up 1 and cut. Then we're going to do a prep row, so just a single crochet row along the edge of our bomber. Then we're going to do the shell detail. So start by inserting our hook into the same stitch that that first row is worked into. If you still have your stitch marker stitch in, then that stitch marker stitch. Then just one single crochet into every side row with our secondary color yarn. So insert your yarn onto your hook again, pull through, and finding our first side row, this is mine right here. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with just one single crochet. Into that following side row, which is this raised row right here, I'm going to find that top loop, insert with 1, and again, next side row, which is this divot, insert with 1, next side row, which is this raised row, insert with 1. We're going to continue with 1 single crochet into every stitch. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, we're going to slip stitch into the same stitch that that first chain is worked into, or that stitch marker stitch if you still have it in there, then do a chain up 1 and cut. So we have just completed our single crochet row along the edge of our collar. Now we're going to do our scallop detail. So we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then inserting our hook into the bottom left corner stitch of our front panel, we're going to insert our secondary color yarn. We're going to pull our yarn through and do a chain 1. That chain 1 is just to secure. Then we're going to skip 1 stitch and into the next, insert with 5 half double crochets. So yarn over, skip 1 stitch like I said, into that next stitch with 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then we're going to skip a stitch, single crochet into the next, and repeat. So skip 1 stitch, into the next, 5 half double crochets. So there's 1, there's 2, 3, 4, and 5. Skip 1 stitch and single crochet into the next to secure that scallop down. And from here, we're just going to continue doing this, making our way all the way up and over. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, do a chain up 1 and cut. So we made our way all the way up and around with our scallops, and now that we have made our way down to the bottom corner stitch, we're going to do a single crochet row with our secondary color yarn to prep for the scallops along the bottom. So from where we're at, we're simply going to put one single crochet into every side row, so our side single crochet rows that we have right here, and also one single crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way around. Once we're worked into this corner stitch, do a chain up of one and cut, then I'll meet you back. So we have just completed our single crochet row along the bottom and did a chain up of one and cut. Now we are going to do the same exact scallops that we did for the body portion using our secondary color yarn again. We just wanted to do it this way so that we show the front of the single crochet row and also show the front of our scallops. We're all going to insert our hook into the chain space that we made right before we got started on the single crochet row along the bottom. Then once we made our way all the way around, do a chain up of one and cut. So we are back. We've made our way around with our bottom scallops. We did do a chain up of one and cut. Now from here, we're going to work on our pockets separately, and then we're going to seam it all together. So just to talk you guys through the beginning of the pocket, we're going to start by making an even number chain for the width that we'd like for the pocket to be. I'd like for mine to be roughly 4 inches or 10 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain 16. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and start with a chain 2. And we're going to do our alpine stitches, so we're all going to start with a half double crochet row. Our first row is completed. Now we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 single crochet into every stitch. We now have our first 2 rows for our pocket completed. We're now going to chain 2, flip our work, and do our same row 3 as our body. So starting with a half double, then a front post double, and continue on with a half and a front post double, making our way all the way down. The last stitch in this row should be a front post double combined with a half double. Our row 3 is completed. Now getting started on our row 4, chain 1, flip our work, 1 single into every stitch. Everyone's row 4 is now complete. Now let's do row 5. We're going to chain 2, flip our work, inserting all of our post stitches into our previous alpine stitch row. Start with 1 front post double, because remember our stitches need to be staggered, then a half. Continue with a front post double and a half to reach the end of the row. Our row 5 is complete, and every even number row is a single crochet row, so chain 1, flip our work, 1 single into every stitch. We are back. We have just completed our first 6 rows. Now from here, we're going to continue to repeat rows 3 through 6 until we get the height of the pocket that we want, keeping in mind that we are going to have a brim as well, and I'll meet everyone back right after an alpine stitch row. Alright, so I now have the height of my pocket completed. I have 15 rows. This is just about 4.5 inches or 11 centimeters. We did do a chain up one and cut right after that last row, and now what we're going to do from here is a single crochet row with our secondary color yarn. So go ahead and insert your hook into the top corner stitch of our alpine stitch detail opposite from where our tail end is, and put 1 single crochet into every stitch with our secondary color yarn. Once we don't have any more stitches left, do a chain up one and cut, then I'll meet you back again. So we are back. We have just completed our single crochet row with our secondary color yarn. Now from here, we're going to do the same exact scallops that we did for the bottom of the piece with our secondary color yarn. So reinsert your hook into that chain 1 space that we made when we got started on our previous single crochet row. Do our same exact scallop. When we made our way all the way across, do a chain up of 1 and cut. So we are back. We have finished up the scallop, and now we can attach it to the cardigan. So when it comes to attaching the pocket to the cardigan, I don't have any real rhyme or reason to it. I'm just going to take a tapestry needle and just sew it in, but I am just going to give you guys a few tips. What I like to do is to place the first row along the single crochet row that we have along the bottom of our front panel, just so that edge is nice and clean. Then working our way up, I'm just going to find 1 stitch and trace that all the way up, just so that the edge of our pocket isn't squiggled. But once we have that, we're going to repeat everything that we did here on the other side, then I'll meet you back. We are back. I have just completed my pocket and have attached it to my cardigan and have done it on the other panel as well. Once we have both of these completed, we are actually all done. Now the last thing I have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it, y'all. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye.